And hello, car lovers, and welcome to the CNC Auto Show. And I am Aaron Clement.
I'm John Ryan.
And we are both here to share information on ways that you can make your car, truck, or SUV safer, to make it more dependable, and to make it last longer for less money and less hassle, because that's what we do.
Yep.
And we like doing that. This show is slightly different, or will be slightly different during this hour. It will be filled with frequently asked questions that we've had that we may have gotten by email, phone calls, and just people
Facebook,
coming
YouTube.
in, Facebook, all of these things, people asking questions. And we've made a list of these because we wanted an opportunity to answer a lot of these questions that people have and just have a complete show filled with answering these questions. So we'll be covering a lot of things during today's show. So buckle up and hold on. And you can still watch this show and previous shows and see the prize winners and all the other things that are there on our Facebook page at CNC Auto Show. Also our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, rather. And also, if you are looking for a good, dependable automotive repair facility almost anywhere in our beautiful country, you can go to NapaAutoCare.com. That's NapaAutoCare.com, and you can pick a shop that's right for you and build a relationship. Or if you're out of town and have a issue, you can do that same thing and call someone. And I've had very good success finding great, sending our customers if they have a problem somewhere.
It works really good.
To that way. Oh, it's worked great. Absolutely. Now, are we ready to fire it up?
Yeah, did you charge the battery on that one, that Porsche?
I did.
Oh,
I got it all charged.
All right, you ready?
It should fire off.
All right, here,
I got
let's
Oh, no.
You'd have to plug the charger in before you did that.
Oh, man. I forgot all about that.
We'll just take my truck.
All right, let's go in now. Now, that one does sound good. Okay, we are ready the show is fired up. And we are, and I did want to mention this. Sherry Moxley will be asking the automotive questions today.
All right.
And we are ready to go to the first question.
Okay, Aaron, I'm going to direct this one to you because I think it was before John Ryan's time. Are today's cars really better than the ones built in the 1950s?
Is that along with his bald spot?
Now that hurts.
I'm sorry.
Abuse. Nothing but abuse. I could get that treatment at home.
John Ryan paid me to do that.
I did.
Now, before I mention this part, I'll say that I love old cars.
Yeah.
An example, a friend of mine's had a car that I just drove around a little bit yesterday.
Yeah.
It was a 59 Bel Air, completely restored, beautiful driving car.
Really takes you back.
And I was just kind of looking at it, and I said, this is kind of neat to have all the chrome. Now, of course, I didn't have cars like that. That was even before my time.
Okay.
I just
Good
enjoy. I just enjoy looking at cars like that because they paid a lot of attention to little details.
Yeah.
A lot of chrome, things like that. But the fact is, they were very heavy.
Yeah. Lead sleds.
They were very inefficient, and they would use up a lot of fuel. And
I think it's to be argued that they were really kind of unsafe.
In some ways,
Yeah,
yes.
I think
I would. If you were to
Compare
them
it to today's.
cars,
Right.
I would say that you're right.
Well, drum brakes on the front of anything isn't good.
And of course, there's no doubt if with as many cars on the road today, if they were all had the same emissions that those cars had, we probably wouldn't be able to breathe.
That's right.
So a lot of the things that the later
come
model
away,
cars have, they're much more efficient, but also they're better for the environment. And we're able to have more cars
For that reason,
and not have the same emission issues. So I would say that the cars in the 50s are definitely fun to look at.
Yeah.
And
Definitely fun to drive.
Yeah, and car shows are wonderful. That's the reason I enjoy going to so many car shows. But as far as being built better,
Right.
No question, later model cars are built much, much better. They go more. The older cars used to go about 100,000 miles before a lot of stuff started coming up.
Right.
Now cars go 200, 250,
Without question,
300 without any problem. All the electronics on them that they do, crank them up, put them in gear, take
Instant
off.
heat, seat warmers, the whole 9 yards.
So later model cars are built much, much better.
Okay, awesome. JR, can you tell us how much extra gas is used when you're using the air condition?
Oh, that's a good question. A lot of it, it's kind of a toss-up because so many people think that compressor, when it's turning, of course, it's dragging on the engine a little bit. It's a little bit more load. But, of course, the option is roll down the windows. And in most cases, the aerodynamics of the vehicle is really sacrificed with the windows down. The vehicle's designed with the, as far as the aerodynamics is concerned, with the windows up, air to funnel, over, across, and behind the vehicle. When you roll down the windows, it actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's been tests proving that it actually decreases fuel economy.
Oh, yes.
Simply because of the aerodynamics.
If you're driving on the road, especially.
Right. So no doubt, if you had the windows up and the AC off, you would be getting better fuel economy. But I don't think it's enough to ever catch like on longhand as far as if you were to draw your miles per gallon out, because you could simply take off from a red light fast one time and totally blow all that out the window. So I think, and in most cases on newer vehicles, the compressor runs all the time anyway. So it's hard to say if it's going to, add or decrease to the economy. So I would say no. I don't think it really
Not
increases
enough
it.
that you can measure.
Right.
You could put the system on Econ and probably keep the compressor
Yeah.
off on the cars that have Econ, like you mentioned. Some don't even have it. But I believe it would be so small and offset by rolling the windows down if you were to do that.
Right.
I say run your AC.
Yeah, use it.
Yeah.
I mean, you paid for it.
Yeah, enjoy your AC and don't worry about that.
And in talking about fuel, is the 93 octane for race cars only?
That's a good question too. A lot of the higher performance vehicles, some of the imports, so of course, some of the Camaros, Mustangs, and stuff like that require 93. But really and truthfully, if the vehicle does not call for 93, there's no reason to use it. You're not going to see many benefits for it. Now, no doubt the octane level, if it's an older car that has some wear and tear, of course it would potentially help.
It may have some carbon buildup,
and it,
raising the
right,
compression
it'll
rate.
offset that for you. But as far as a true advantage, I really don't think there's any advantage to it. But now, if a vehicle does call for 93, I would urge you to put 93 in it because of the higher combustion in that engine, and of course, a lot of the parameters for the fuel injection system is looking for a higher octane, and of course, it gets the maximum performance.
And what a lot of people do is their car might call for lower octane fuel, 87 octane, and they might be in a good mood that day, and their car's been doing.
They got a lot of Kroger points.
Man, I'm gonna be good to my car today. I'm gonna give it a treat. I'm gonna give it that high octane fuel.
Right.
All you did was waste money.
That's right.
If the car didn't call for it and it's running normal,
A lot of people
regular,
think it's a cleaner fuel too, and in most cases, 87, 89, and 93 have the same detergents in it.
It's not any cleaner. All it's doing is the ability of the fuel to resist detonation.
That's right.
And it's not anything to do with making the fuel system cleaner, doing anything different. So you're really not giving your engine a treat. You need to give yourself a treat. Take that money, go spend it somewhere else on a good restaurant or
There
do
you go.
something there.
Car wash.
Yeah,
Treat your
car wash. Yeah, give it a treat like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So before we head to the break, I want to ask a two-part question on the topic that you're talking about. So if there's a gas shortage like we recently had, and 93 is all that's available, it's not going to hurt for people to use that and then go back to
Not at all.
the
Very
87.
good question. Yeah, not at all. And the same thing if 93 wasn't available and your car required 93, it would not harm it to put an 87 in there. Now, of course, the next fill up or the next time 93 is available, it would be a good idea to do that. You may, if it's a vehicle that requires 93 octane, you put 87 in it in an event like that. It may have some slight drivability characteristics, but nothing that the average driver would even pick up on.
Okay. And to close us out, JR, on the fuel, people are asking, does it matter where you buy the gas?
Personally, yes, I agree. It does matter. You would not want to buy it, on an old rural highway street that, maybe sells 10 gallons a month. You want to buy it in populated areas. That way there's a lot of turnover on that fuel. That way it's not stale, I guess would be the word for it. The ethanol has not separated from it. Now, I know fuel stations do every precaution they can to keep that inventory, of course, a good product. But I do tend to buy, especially diesel, because diesel's kind of hard to come by in the city. So I always try and buy it near interstates that, obviously big trucks are in there and they really use a lot of that fuel. So.
Okay, time to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
My pappy said, son, you're gonna drive me to drinking if you don't stop driving that hot rod Lincoln. Have you heard the story of
And
the hot
welcome
rod
back
days
to the
before?
CNC Auto Show, and we are in the middle of Power Hour. We are answering questions very rapidly and just covering a lot of ground all at
That's
one
right.
time. We are ready for the next question.
Okay. Does putting extra air in the tires help a car cope with carrying extra weight? And of course, that would be shopping bags, shoes,
Michael Kors, all
Michael
that stuff.
Kors, not body weight. No, I'm just
Right.
kidding.
Yes, absolutely, it does. Rolling resistance is everything as far as being efficient and fuel economy. To kind of put that in your mind, think about pushing a car with flat tires. It's almost impossible.
Yes.
And then think about
Even
pushing
low tires. Is
Yeah,
hard to push.
exactly, yeah. And then think about pushing a car that has really, really hard tires, like say, like casters or plastic wheels.
Yeah.
It moves really, really easy. So yes, the extra weight. Matter of fact, that's why a lot of times a vehicle have two different tire pressures, especially trucks. You know, for heavy loads, use this pressure. For daily driving, use this pressure. So yes, it will actually absolutely increase that.
And it is recommended that if you plan on carrying a heavier load
Right.
than the vehicle would normally carry, you may want to up that tire pressure just a little bit, because when they're running, when you got that extra weight on there and the pressure is not what it should be, you build up a lot more heat.
Heat, exactly.
You can damage the tire, and also that leads into being sure that you don't exceed the load limit of
That's
the
right.
tire.
And that's a good tip too, Aaron. The number one thing you want to be absolutely sure is you're not. Say if the vehicle it's a 3/4 ton Chevrolet truck and it says 80 psi. Well, you want to be absolutely sure the tires can accept 80 psi. Now, under factory conditions, of course, it would. Obviously, they match the tires. But sometimes people cut corners. That particular vehicle, just as an instance, would use E-rated tires. Well, if somebody puts a D-rated tire on there, you would not be able to achieve that pressure. So you want to be absolutely sure you always put the right tires, the load range of tires, of course, speed rated on cars. That's appropriate for the vehicle. Because in most cases, if for instance, if you had a big truck and you decrease the amount that the tires can carry and your truck can carry the weight, you're really kind of in a potentially dangerous situation.
And then also mentioning that speed rating, just because the tires are speed rated for 140, don't mean that you should cruise at 140.
Exactly, like Aaron does. Didn't you put Z-rated on the Prius?
I did.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, Bo had a question.
All right, let's go.
So when you're going on that vacation that Aaron's taken,
Right.
and you load the family, you got the car topper on fully loaded.
Okay.
So you want to pump up the tires, is that right?
Yep,
Yes.
Going to
Okay.
Wally Wally World.
Right. And then when you get there and you unload it, should you take the tire pressure back down, or is it okay to leave it in
It
for
would be.
a week?
I think for
till you
that
come back?
instance, it would probably be a hassle to decrease it. Really, I don't think you'd have any side effects, I guess you would say, of having increased tire pressure. Short of, it may be a little bit more bumpy. It really shouldn't have
you'd
any
be fine
issues.
to leave it like it
Okay.
is, and then
until once you get back home, then
Then
go back to
lower
your
it,
normal.
or on your next oil change, lower it.
Right.
Because it's not going to make a major difference on there. Just over time, if you left too much in there, you could get a little extra tire where you ride
In the
wouldn't
center,
be quite
yeah.
as good.
Right.
And that doesn't matter if you're driving on straight roads or curvy roads. Like this is mountain time. A lot of people are going to be heading to the mountains.
Right.
Yeah, as long
Does-
as you don't want to go past your load or
Load
the
carrying
pressure that
capabilities,
you should
yeah.
put in there. But no, you would actually be fine. And matter of fact, if you're carrying a fairly heavy load, now I'm not talking about a car topper, that wouldn't add a huge amount.
We're talking
to
like
it.
camper or gooseneck
but
or
if you're putting
towing
something larger on a vehicle, you do want to make sure that you have your tire pressure set to handle that particular load.
Okay, these next couple of questions is going to revolve around rush hour traffic. What should you do if your engine temperature gauge begins to rise during rush hour traffic?
Jump.
Yeah, jump out. One good thing that's kind of a habit and a lot of people know about is, of course, turn the heat on. It actually, when you use that heater core, it's doing just that. It's exchanging heat out of that engine. Now, no doubt, obviously, you would be hot in that instance, but it's better. you being hot for a few minutes to where you can get that vehicle in a safe situation to where you can shut it off is worth a lot compared to a
and do less damage.
highly pricey engine. Yeah. So I tend to lean that way. The next thing would be is, of course, if it's high, if the temperature's getting higher and you're going to be in traffic for 10, 15 minutes and you're not moving, just shut the car off. Of course, that would definitely help decrease the temperature. What else, Aaron?
Well, those are the main things.
Main
Just
things?
above all else, do whatever you can do safely
Right.
to not let the engine be running while the temperature
Yeah, by
is
no
showing
means get
hot.
out, pop the hood, or anything like that in the middle of traffic. Just try and get to a safe place
Yeah.
as soon as
Safety
possible.
first, then save the engine.
That's right.
After that, and the less it runs with the temperature high,
Mm-hmm.
the less damage that you will do to the engine.
That's right.
And if you have any doubts, it's a lot cheaper to have a car towed than to replace the engine.
Big time.
So go ahead and if you have to tow it, have it towed.
Okay, well, let's say that you're not necessarily having a gauge
Issue?
rise.
Okay.
You're just in normal traffic, or you're going to be sitting for an extended period of time, as I was coming through Atlanta yesterday. Should you turn your car off?
I would say no if you're in traffic. Just simply because, say traffic clears up and, some of these vehicles, you got to find your keys and then, you're hanging up traffic. Now, if you were, idling for a period of time, say you're at the mall waiting on your husband or wife, to come back or
3,
something
4,
like that.
5 minutes that you'll be stopped.
Right. I think 3 or 4 or 5 minutes is fine to idle, but anything more than that, there's a lot of heat buildup. The systems get really, really hot when they're idling. Technically, the vehicles are designed to where they can run for an extended period of time. It's just not very good for the vehicle,
Well, it's
in
not
my
fuel
opinion.
efficient either.
Right.
They've done tests and proven that it's cheaper after maybe 3 or 4 minutes just to cut the vehicle off.
Yeah.
And then crank it back up. You're using less fuel if you do it that way. And that, of course, is the reason that a lot of vehicles now are start-stop systems. They automatically cut off when you come up to a stop sign,
Right.
and automatically start back up when you give it a little bit of gas.
And two, Aaron, we had this argument actually at the shop just the other day. A lot of people think diesels should idle all day. And they say at idle they actually are operating off a compression. Well, if that is true, when it runs out of fuel, why does it shut off? It's not true. It does use fuel. So I agree. I would cut it off if it's going to be an
Absolutely.
extended period of time. So
Yeah. Okay, it is time for a real quick break. When we return, we will go to more of those frequently asked questions, and we will be right back after this.
All right.
Eastbound and down, loaded up and trucking. Are we gonna do what they say can't be done? We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there.
And welcome back to the CNC Auto Show, and we are in the Power Hour answering automotive questions, and we are ready to go straight to the next question.
Okay, how long should you warm up an engine before winter driving?
Well, I tell you what, John Ryan, I'll mention gas, and
All right.
you mention diesel.
okay,
Is
that's
that
good.
fair enough?
I was going to say, is that how long you should or how long do people? All right, go ahead.
Well,
Aaron.
actually, later model cars, if you get in the vehicle, and by the time you start the vehicle, buckle your seatbelt, adjust your mirrors, adjust your AC, the few little odds and ends you're going to do it, which takes less than a minute, or
Yeah.
don't take very long at all to do, you're ready to put it in gear.
Yep.
And take off. Because you look at cars like the Prius and a lot of start-stop systems that you have, you're able to go in and they may be running off electrical when you're very first moving, and
Right.
then all of a sudden crank up while the vehicle's already moving.
Yeah.
Because I see that every morning when I get in
When
the
you hop in
Prius.
yours,
I put it in gear and I back out of my driveway with electric power, and then as I start giving it the
Going down
gas,
the road,
it
yeah.
kicks in and goes, and of course it hadn't warmed up any. All
Right.
it's doing is taking off and going.
Exactly.
So very short for a gas engine. Now on a diesel, what do you think?
Well, number one, I do agree with the gasoline scenario you just mentioned, but for me, it's just a mental thing. I'm thinking about where that oil is at that time, so I do tend to, if you have the time, I say let it idle for a minute, That may be exaggerating
Now
a little
I
bit.
do
but
that with almost every diesel that I get.
yeah,
in.
yeah. So diesels, most glow plugs on today's vehicles, with the exception of some of the older diesels, they're very, very quick. They heat up almost instantaneously. Same scenario. You get in, you turn the key on. Normally the wait to start light or the glow plug light goes out. Crank it up. By the time you of course, put your seatbelt on, adjust the temperature, kind of get situated, it is technically safe to run. I mean, it's definitely warmed up. One thing that really makes that scenario possible is if you're using your block heater. Of course, obviously, this is in severe cold temperatures, but it really makes a huge difference. Even in our town, obviously, we don't get very cold here, but my block heater makes a big difference. You can hear the RPM spin faster. You can hear the engine, as far as fuel knock and everything, not loud. So I still like to let it idle for a minute before I leave. But really and truthfully, you can get in and go.
And cars below like 2010,
Yeah.
I let them warm up a little bit longer than
Right.
the later model also. So a little bit determined, it depends on what year model that you have.
But the reality of it is people just get in and go anyways.
That's true. So everything we said was pointless.
Right.
Okay.
More preference.
Aaron, some of our other markets, the listeners they're in much colder climates. So
yeah.
even if their car's parked in a garage, they may still want to warm it up. So we want to be safe about that.
Well, yes, and many times in the winter months, people will either have a remote start where they can go ahead and crank their vehicle, let it be warming up for them, or they may walk outside and hit it. If the car is parked outside, many times they may want to defrost, let it run to defrost the windshield.
Right.
And then many times they may walk outside and the car be gone. but
Sherry brought up a good tip, though. Like she mentioned, if it's in the garage and say you're in Canada or something like that, you definitely want to open the garage
Yes.
before you crank it up. Obviously, for carbon monoxide. Same thing with your remote start, like you mentioned. Say you're in your kitchen, you remote start it, and next thing you know, you forgot, and it's been running for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That can be a
and that
potential
gives
danger.
me something that I do want to say. I'm the safety officer of the show.
Yeah, because
and
you're the
always
most
bring-
reckless, dangerous person.
With a vehicle with a memory key, it is very, very important that you make sure you cut the vehicle off. There has been cases where people will pull in,
People name Aaron.
and they will. Yes, I've done this with our car. I went to the beach one time, and the car was sitting out there, and I come back about 30 minutes later to get something else, and I had left the vehicle running because the vehicles, you have to remember to push the button to cut it off every time.
Well, you develop a habit of
Yeah.
not necessarily having
Yeah.
to switch the key off and pull the key out. It's just a button, so it's very.
can't believe
it's
you-
kind of like walking out of your bedroom and forgetting to turn your light switch
Yeah, I
off.
can't believe you pulled that out of me about what I did leaving a car running at the beach.
Oh, they saw it,
But,
man. They
but
saw it
I
on
did.
the news.
But it's easy to do. Now, that was at the beach. That was in a parking lot. But it can happen with a vehicle parked in someone's garage door closed. That causes carbon monoxide major issues. So
Right.
be sure you cut these cars off when you pull them into the garage and make double sure everything's turned off. Okay.
Okay, let's talk about anti-lock brakes in an emergency. How should you use them?
Okay, good question. Anti-lock brakes. A lot of people have never experienced the anti-lock stop. So when the event of an ABS stop comes up, people kind of think there's something wrong with their brakes. Hey, my pedal went to the floor. It's making a buzzing noise in the pedal. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was.
So it can startle some people. Sometimes it's kind of a good idea to become familiar with your vehicle. For instance, you buy a new vehicle today. Once you get kind of the idea where everything is, it's a good idea to take it to a gravel parking lot, not very fast, say 10 miles an hour, and really hit the brakes, abruptly. And a lot of times you'll experience that ABS stop so that you're aware of what it will do. In the unfortunate event that you need to use them.
Yeah.
So I guess back to the question as far as how to use them. Really, you just use them like everyday brakes. Definitely you don't have to lift off the pedal like you used to. The car's computer actually lifts the pedal pressure and it releases the pressure to the wheels to prevent that tire from locking up. Because a tire that locks up on pavement will actually gain speed versus a tire that has traction and again now it's hydraulically relieving the pressure at that wheel, but that's to regain traction. And this is cool thing that we did here at our car show every year that we do. We did our 2 shop vans, which are identical Dodge Caravans. We wet the road. We did one without ABS, and we did one with ABS. And the one with the, I don't remember the exact feet, but it was
a big difference, though.
significantly difference with ABS versus non. So
And you
ABS
keep
is a
your
good
steering
system.
control. And what the anti-brakes are doing is exactly what experienced drivers
Did
that
in
were
the past,
used to
yeah.
icy roads have always done.
Well,
They
race
hit the
car drivers,
brakes
too.
And, race car drivers, they would hit the brakes. If they feel a wheel starting to lock up, they'd release the brake. As soon
Ease
as they
back on
gained
it, yeah.
control, they'd hit it again. The only difference is the anti-lock brake system can apply and release that brake 18 times a second.
Yeah, probably
And-
18
and-
times more than you can in
Yeah,
1 second.
Exactly, and able to keep control. So you just keep constant pressure on the brakes and let the anti-lock brake system doing its job instead of the temptation of letting off and applying, let off
Right.
and applying. Just
Because that-
keep your pressure.
That scenario will actually make the stop be longer also if you did that with an ABS
Exactly.
car. So
Okay, we're ready for the next question.
Okay, how do you clean dirty battery terminals?
oh man, I've heard every kind of way, Coca-Cola, all kinds of stuff, but for me the best thing is just to go get the proper cleaner at Napa.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I like to do.
We use that Napa cleaner also.
Yeah, that's good
you,
stuff.
You get the cleaner and then the sealer.
Right.
Take your negative cable off first, then your positive cable.
Right.
And then spray it down. Anywhere you see corrosion on the posts, on the cables, and
Right.
the tray, spray it down. Let
Good
it sit
idea
a
to
little
use
while.
rubber gloves or any kind of gloves
Yeah,
that you
and
have.
some eye protection.
Eye protection also.
That's a great thing.
Of course,
then-
Napa also has those really cool brushes that you simply put on the terminal, twist a few times as a male end, female end, clean the terminals real good. Biggest thing with that is you obviously your safety yourself is important, the most important, but try not to get that corrosion on wiring, paint, plastics, and stuff like that. So it's a good idea to spray that cleaner on there, let it sit a little while because it'll actually kind of simmer, then clean them. So
Yeah, and wash it off real good when you get done.
That's right.
And that'll work out good.
Okay, let's hit this question before we go to the break. Will putting radial tires on an older car that came with bias ply tires hurt its suspension?
Oh, that's a good question. Aaron, you're more of that age.
Well, I would. Now that really hurts.
That was
I
a
don't
joke.
even remember bias tires hardly.
Sure.
But really, on bias tires, if you want to keep a car original, you may want to say, "Well, I'm gonna get some bias tires so it have that original."
They
look.
actually have radial tires that say bias on the
Oh, they
side
do?
of them for antique
Oh,
cars.
wow.
They sure do. Yep.
And that answers the question right there.
Yeah.
It's really better to have radial tires even on a car that came with the old bias tires.
Right.
It's much easier on the suspension components. Drives better, handles better, just all the way around better.
Yeah, significant changes. Yeah.
Doing what John Ryan mentioned there, I didn't know they did that.
They do, yeah,
But even if you want to keep it original, buying the radials with the bias road on it, you're way ahead.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay. And finally, Aaron, just answer how much or how do you know how much air to put in the tires?
Well, that's on a lot of cars that's found on the door panel. Now,
Right.
on the older model vehicles, you would have to do a little research. I recommend going to doing a Google search to find out
Yeah.
what most of those are.
There's
But you're
several
gonna find
tire
most older
websites.
model vehicles is going to be somewhere around 32 psi as a general rule. Some may go 35. But if you want to get more specific than that, I would do a Google search.
That's right. All right, we're all out of time here.
Okay, we are. It's time for another break. We'll be right back after these messages.
There's a highway, I wanna ride it all night long. If you're going my way, well, I wanna drive it all night long.
All right, we are back with you on the CNC Auto Show, and we are covering frequently asked questions.
We were
And-
until you started dancing.
Well, I was just ready. Okay, we're ready for the next question.
Okay, well, this one I really love because nobody wants to overpay for anything.
Right.
So, how do you protect yourself from being overcharged for car repairs?
Oh, that's kind of a loaded question. I think for me, in my personal instance, would be just that relationship you have with the person. I think it's very important to obviously trust them.
Yeah.
If you trust them, you kind of leave it in their hands, and typically
And to keep that relationship, you want to do certain things, because if you have a misunderstanding or miscommunication, it can ruin a great relationship you have with somebody that you enjoy going to.
Right.
So you want to always ask, you want them to always call you and let you know what something will cost.
Don't ever let
before
them
it's done.
spend your money.
Yeah, don't ever walk in and say, well, the water pump's leaking. Yeah, go ahead and do it.
Just
Well,
fix it.
You
The
might
famous
have
last
in your
words.
mind a water pump costing $150, and and water pumps can cost $500, $600,
Shoot,
$800
more than
or
that.
more.
Timing belt one.
And that may give you a bad feeling with that person when you go back. So when you have stuff done, regardless of whether you trust them or don't trust them,
Right.
go ahead and ask for an estimate before the work is done. If you're having diagnostic work done, ask what the diagnostics would cost. Make sure that you give that shop all the information of how to get in touch with you. Let them know if you're hard to get in touch with, if they need to leave a message.
Yeah,
if they don't
text
reach
works
you.
better, email works better, whatever works
Yeah,
good
but
for
don't
you.
give them a reason or have to make a rush decision on
decision,
their
yeah.
own.
Right.
And you don't want to have to make a rush decision either. So go ahead and take things in, have them checked, ask them to call you when you do. When the job is being done, when they give you an estimate, you want to find out if you're using new parts, used parts, remanufactured parts. You want to find out what the warranty will be on the item that you're having repaired.
On the repair, yeah.
And then once the car is completed, you want to go, if there's questions on the ticket, sit down and ask them those questions.
Yeah.
Because what happens a lot of times, people will get home and something just is they didn't
Something
feel
didn't sound
right
right,
about
yeah.
something. When if they would have just asked the question, the person could have told them exactly what it was real quickly, and they would have felt really good about everything.
Right.
So ask questions.
So two
communicate.
things: trust and communication.
Yes, I think that's perfect.
Yeah,
I
you
like
just like
that.
talk.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, and we talked about this during the break a little bit. Are extended service plans a good deal?
I have mixed feelings against those. I think if it's something that you can get for a really good deal, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's in some cases beneficial if it's a very cheap plan. However, on this side of the table, we've experienced where they don't necessarily pay for everything. A lot of companies don't pay for the diagnostics, and a lot of companies find reasons, not necessarily to get out of it, but reasons to not cover it.
Well, which is fine. If something's not covered, it's not covered. But so many times, the person selling the warranty will make it sound as though anything that's ever done on this car for the
Right.
next 3 years or whatever the length
Terms
of
are,
the
yeah.
warranty is will be covered, and you won't have to worry about anything. So you've arranged your finances around that, not having any repairs
Come up, yeah.
Well, a little something comes up. You take the car to a repair shop, and the person says, well, your warranty company don't pay for diagnostics. You will need to pay for that first, and if it turns out to be a covered repair, then you'll be okay. So you give them to go ahead and run the diagnostics, and it costs you a certain amount of money there. And then you find out that it's one of the items that is not covered, and then you have more money spent there.
I want to interrupt you real quick. The part I have a problem with is who looks bad in that situation.
Yeah, and
I
it's
do.
The shop person has to do it.
Right.
And then also you find out that the maintenance is not covered either. If you have something like a belt or brake pads worn or
Sure.
Oil changes.
Well,
doing services.
unfortunately, an example is I was told a U-joint was a maintenance item, and I firmly disagree with that. That's part of the drivetrain.
Right.
You know, that's not a maintenance item at all.
Yeah, and I've had cases where I really feel like something should be covered, but it was not covered. So as long as you know what you're getting, if you're thinking about getting one, definitely do a lot of research on the company first. Get a good
Reviews, I think, would be a good one, too.
on the company and a good name brand company.
Right.
If you do plan to go in. I do see some people come out good on them.
Right.
But as a general rule, it's something that you want to research very
Exactly.
carefully before
Do some
getting.
research on it.
I want to expand on that a little bit. So, JR, you were saying that some cars are really good, that they typically don't have these
Right.
kind of issues. So how would somebody find that information out?
Well, I think, of course, the service that a lot of shops provide is a pre-purchase inspection. Technicians almost are in a world of their own. They know vehicles and the common problems and what comes up with them. So, if you were buying a vehicle, like for instance, a Chevy Equinox or something like that, you may know it has this problem, this problem, this problem. So you could say, specifically to that warranty company if they were going to provide you a warranty. Hey, do you cover this? Do you cover this? And then that way you know if those items will be covered. But I think the communication between the technician that, obviously knows a lot about the cars and then you mentioning what car you're going to think about purchasing would help out in the event of if you were going to purchase an extended warranty or not.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that there are some shops that do not deal with warranty, would not be able to assist you with?
I would say, I'm not sure of this, but I would venture to say there's quite a few of them that probably don't. Just simply, it is a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of paper trail, paper hassle. You're on the phone 2-3 times for something very, very simple. It's a service obviously we provide just simply because there are quite a few of them out there. But yes, I would say there's few that do
And we don't want to lump them all in the same baskets because
there's some that are great,
very,
flawless,
very
absolutely,
good.
yeah.
But some are not so great.
Right, yeah.
Okay, let's see if we can get a couple more questions in. Is it true that cars with 50,000 or more miles have timing chain problems?
Whoa.
Wow, that's a good one. It really depends on how those first 50,000 miles were spent. If that vehicle is not maintained, if it's never had an oil change, yes, absolutely, it's going to have a timing chain problem. Mainly because that chain, just like your bicycle when you were a kid, is going 100 miles an hour. So if it's not properly lubricated and the preventative maintenance, yes, it will fail. Some vehicles actually have issues with timing chains on past 50,000. Less and less. Typically, they're one of two things. Again, it goes back to the maintenance and sometimes what the chain guides are made out of. Of course, a lot of chain guides are actually plastic. They have not necessarily set intervals, but they do have a lifespan, obviously, just like any
and back
mechanical
in
part.
even the 90s, it wasn't unusual for timing chains to be worn out at 100,000 miles.
Yeah,
But
you'd have to adjust the timing to
but
help
now
with that.
I would say most vehicles out there, timing chains will last the length of the engine. If that's 200, 250, 300,
Yeah.
on most of them, they will go that length of time. But if that vehicle has a timing chain, that makes the oil changes even more critical
Yeah.
to use the correct weight of oil, type of oil, API rating.
Right, I don't know why I picked that Equinox, but just like that one, it requires Dextos. They have timing chain issues, so
Yeah.
I guess that may be why I picked it. But that's a great point because if you do not follow, that's why it's a manual. It instructs you of how to maintain that vehicle, so follow it.
Exactly.
Big
So,
investment.
Yeah, very critical.
And
Okay.
Aaron, in our last minute that we have here, talk about the ASC certified technicians. Just give us a little how important that is.
Well, ASE stands for Automotive Service Excellence.
That's right.
That you have, and it's a certification system, and it's more of a voluntary system for automotive repair technicians to go to across the country. It's evolved. I remember when we first started going to classes, we would see like large number of technicians would walk in and we would do paper tests.
Yeah.
Now the tests are done electronically. You go in and you sit down and you go through a list of tests. You're certified in different areas. You might be brakes, transmissions, electrical,
Or parts or service.
and it does not it don't necessarily mean beyond question that person is completely proficient in that area, but I will tell you that what I found over the years that technicians that take the time to study, take the test,
They're
get
serious.
certified, they're serious about being an automotive technician, and the same goes for the shops that become Blue Seal Excellent,
Right.
Which is a category that the shop can be in.
Something to be proud of, too.
Okay, we're about out of time. The clock is on E. We need to pull over for now, but we'll be back on the road in no time. I'm Aaron Clements with co-host John Ryan Mooney. Our show producers are Sherry Moxley, who asked questions today, Zach Llewellyn, Bert Dean, Bo Roberts, Alan Dean, and Sandy Klein. And we would all like to say thank you to all of you that tuned in and logged into the CNC Auto Show, and we will see you next time.